Hello everyone and welcome back to the Sports Porch. I hope that you are all doing well, and welcome back to my NFL Power Rankings and Team Breakdown series. This is team number 22, which unfortunately is the Washington football team. I say unfortunately because I think this team is special, man, and we'll go through them in a little bit, but before we do that, make sure you drop a like on this video, as well as subscribing and turning on post notifications. Just a reminder, every single day until the NFL season, you will see a new video from me breaking down a team's strengths, weaknesses, some potential storylines for the season, as well as some key players to watch out for on the field, as well as for your fantasy rosters, as well as going through some general schedule predictions and things of that sort. So let's go ahead, man, and jump into this Washington football team. At general manager is Martin Mayhew in his first year. Otherwise, head coach Ron Rivera, offensive coordinator Scott Turner, and DC Jack Del Rio are all in their second year. And then Nate Kazer, I believe is how you pronounce that, sorry if I butchered that, is your special teams coordinator. He has been here for 3 years. So some strengths for this team. I mean, the first two are going to deal with the defense because they really are just that good. I mean, this defensive front is one of the best in football. Chase Young is a growing star. Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Montez Sweat, Cole Holcomb, John Bostic, Matt Ioannidis, and they just added Jamin Davis in the draft as well at interior, which was really their one weak spot in this defensive front, and now they've got a bright young piece there out of Kentucky. This defensive front is mauling. They are young. They are feisty. They are going to be super fun to watch, man. If you see Washington on the national schedule, if you're able to watch them, I would recommend watching them at least once just to see the likes of Chase Young playing football, because he really is that special of a talent. And this is coming from a Wisconsin fan, by the way, so I try not to hold any bias toward him for destroying us. But he really is that great of a player. And the best part about all of this is that the only guy over the age of 30 I just listed in that entire group is John Bostic. So this team is super young on defense, especially at this line, where they're just going to maul people all year long. And on top of that, they're only going to get better. Next up, secondary is also fairly good as well. Kendall Fuller is the obvious guy here, along with William Jackson. You've also got Darrell Roberts in there as well, and they just drafted in the third round Benjamin St. Juste, who I think went under the radar a little bit, a corner out of Minnesota. And then you've got Landon Collins, Bobby McMahon, as well as Cameron Curl in there at your safety spots. So this is a solid secondary group. Kendall Fuller really elevates them as well. So once again, just this defense for the Washington football team is what's really going to drive them this year, especially with head coach Ron Rivera, defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio. Both of these guys are great defensive minds. We've seen what they've been able to do before with some of the great defenses. Ron Rivera, obviously, with the 85 Bears, the 06 Bears, along with the Panthers in 2015, I believe. He really has coached up some great defenses. He continues to do it everywhere he goes around the NFL, and I think that's what makes him such a great coach. He's able to translate the skill set of taking this ferocious defense, which will keep them in games most of the time, and really transferring it everywhere he goes to the NFL. As well as having that whole story with his cancer battle last year. How can you not love that and just win the locker room after something like that? Then my last one, this receiving group looks pretty good now. You've got obviously Terry McLaurin at the top of that list, but bringing in Curtis Samuel, a former Carolina Panther, a former Ron Rivera player, also a former Ohio State player with Terry McLaurin. That's a match made in heaven for those two. He's going to be a perfect Robin to McLaurin's Batman. Adam Humphries is here as well. He's a solid player. He can be a solid 3 for them. And then keep your eyes on De'Ami Brown out of North Carolina. He has true potential to be their true slot guy. He's got great separation, great burst off of the line. Watch out for him. He's a little smaller, but in the NFL, that flies today. As well as J.D. McKissick out of the backfield. You could say Antonio Gibson as well, but I think McKissick will get a majority of the receiving snaps out of there. And then Logan Thomas at tight end, who has been pretty good for them. So this team is really got talent all over the board. But now let's get into their weaknesses, which is basically just that the team is still pretty young. So this defense is great, right? They've got all the talent in the world. They work really well together. However, when they start facing some of these teams on their schedule, which they face, they've got these older quarterbacks who are going to be able to pick these young defenses with young tendencies right apart. And we're going to go over their schedule in a little bit. But while winning the NFC East last year, I think was really good for them and a really good team building moment, it unfortunately gave them a little bit of a jacksaw of a schedule at the beginning half of the year. And then also, I love the Ryan Fitzpatrick signing. I really love what he does for this team. I want to iterate this before I make this point about it being a weakness, because I love the Ryan Fitzpatrick signing. Love what he does for the team, veteran presence, and he can play football. However, he's not their long-term answer there. He is a 1 to 2 to potentially 3-year Band-Aid for this team to look for another spot at the quarterback position. I like Taylor Heineke. I think he looked good. Last year in that Tampa Bay game they played in the playoffs, Kyle Allen has shown some decent stuff, but they really do need a long-term answer. They tried with Dwayne Haskins. That didn't really work out. They do need somebody in here permanently, a notable veteran free agent potentially on the market, someone to go up and get in the draft. They really just need someone with more outlook in terms of the future. And that's not to say I don't love Ryan Fitzpatrick. I love what he brings to the team. He is a gunslinger to a T. He's going to have some really good weeks and some not so good weeks. And so you're going to take those not so good weeks because those good weeks are so high for Ryan Fitzpatrick. He is such a boomer bust quarterback. He is so much fun to watch. Honestly, I think one of my favorite plays from last year was the helmet grab throw that he made, I think against the Raiders, I want to say, with the Dolphins last year. Just a picture-perfect throw while getting his face yanked to the side, getting a flag thrown as well now. One of the most iconic plays, I think, of last year. So I'm saying all of this about Ryan Fitzpatrick because I really do love the signing. I think it's an A+. I think he brings a lot to this team. But they do need a guy there long term. And I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick is that. So let's then go ahead to the last one, which is right tackle. Now, this could be a potential problem if Sam Cosmi doesn't develop. I loved the draft pick. I actually just loved the draft in general from Washington. Jamin Davis in the first, Sam Cosmi, which I thought was a steal in the second, St. Juice in the third, as well as De'Ami Brown, which was a steal in the third. They had some amazing picks in this draft, but Sam Cosmi is raw. He's going to need a little bit of time to develop, and you hope that you can see that right away in camp. I haven't read any reports on him and how he has been doing, but he's a guy they really need to develop very quickly to protect Ryan Fitzpatrick on that side, because otherwise I think the line is pretty solid here, especially with one of the best guards in football in Brandon Sheriff playing here. So then some storylines heading into the season. Can Fitzpatrick stay consistent? I mean, that's been the whole question his entire career. I'm going to say no to that because that's just his play style, right? He'll throw the ball into double coverage 40 yards down the field. And you know what? 2 out of every 5 times, it's going to work. And he's going to look like a genius for making that throw. The genius Harvard player that he is. That's just how Ryan Fitzpatrick rolls. He really is the definition of boom or bust. He kind of reminds me of a worse version of Brett Favre, just because Brett Favre's lows were a little more consistent than Ryan Fitzpatrick's, and they weren't quite as big of valleys as what Fitzpatrick has. And then my next question is, will this defense become one of the best in the NFL this year? I think they already are one of the better ones in the NFL. I just think the secondary group has to get a tad bit better, like marginally better, and then they can really start to be in that conversation as a top 3 defense in the NFL. And also I think they just need more time. As I kept saying, They don't really have a guy over the age of 30 besides like Cole Holcomb or John Bostic, on this team. So it's just about getting those reps in, getting experience, especially for these younger guys like Chase Young, like St. Juste, who might play some snaps this year, like Jamin Davis, who's going to start in the middle for them this year. He just needs more snaps, more play time, and that's all you can really give them is time to grow. And then can they win the NFC East is the big question mark this year. They kind of had a miracle run last year and were able to win it. Now the question becomes, can they repeat? And I do think they have a real opportunity of doing that. I think that they have, while not the most talented roster in this division, I think that they have probably the best coaching in all of this division in terms of just being rock solid and steady throughout the year. As we'll see in a little bit here, their schedule doesn't help them out very much, although they do have a very winnable slate of games at the end of the year. So then let's go into their three key players. Fitzpatrick is number one. Quarterback kind of makes or breaks the league. I've said this in multiple videos now. I put a lot of emphasis on who your quarterback is. And Fitzpatrick is going to win them some games, and he's certainly going to lose them some games as well. But if he can make those peaks stay more consistent and keep those valleys out of there, I think Fitzpatrick can do them a lot of great stuff. Chase Young coming into year 2, he is a star. I mean, already he was amazing last year. This year, I think he's going to be even better, really cement himself in the top 10, top 5 echelon of edge rushers in the NFL. And it's just going to be watching his growth as an edge rusher and what he can do. I think the world of Chase Young. He is that dude for this team. And then Samuel Cosmi is my last guy. Being the starting right tackle probably day one, that's a lot of pressure on a young guy, especially one who is a little bit raw, such as Cosmi. He's an athletic freak, although he did take a lot of snaps at Texas. So we'll have to see how he deals with that. I think that he'll do all right. He will have his ebbs and flows, I think, of being just a rookie in the NFL and having guys on the other side of him who are going to dominate him. And that's just what happens in the NFL sometimes as a rookie. You kind of get the rounds, you get put through the ringer. It's just what happens. So then let's go to our best fantasy players. These are all fairly straightforward. If you've done any kind of fantasy drafts this year, you'll see these guys taken at the top half of your draft. Especially these top two guys, Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson. They're going to be taken probably within the first 3 to 4 rounds, I would reckon. Especially Terry. Now, he does have Curtis Samuel and De'Ami Brown coming in here, so that does leave a question of how much those guys will split his reps. But I think also with Fitzpatrick coming into this team, with the deep ball thrower that he is, and with the deep threat that Terry McLaurin is in general, I think that's kind of a match made in heaven. Those guys are going to be great together. And then for Antonio Gibson, he gets the majority of the rushing snaps here. J.D. McKissick is the backfield guy, so Gibson maybe isn't the best in a PPR format. He's not going to go at the top of the running backs that are in this class, but he's going to go pretty high nonetheless. I kind of put him in that Josh Jacobs category of players where he's not going to go towards the top necessarily, but he'll play like an RB1 just based off of his production alone. And then Logan Thomas at tight end had really a breakout season last year. I think he can continue it here, even with the addition of that new receiving weapons in Curtis Samuel and De'Ami Brown. But I think he projects nicely this year as well. Don't expect him to go top 3 or anything. He's not going to go ahead of Kelsey, Kittle, or Andrews and Waller. He's not going to go ahead of those guys. But after that, he might be the next guy off the board. So my sleeper player for Dynasty, we talked about him a little bit earlier, and that is De'Ami Brown. He's a guy who could really rise to this team very quickly. I think he could even make it up to wide receiver 2. It is hard with Terry McLaurin here. He is truly that guy. He is truly that alpha receiver for them. So I think he is kind of limited being in Washington to a number 2, but I think he's going to be a great number 2. Like I said, great speed, great burst. All of those things you look for in a slot receiver day one. So then let's go on to their schedule overview. They do have the 15th hardest schedule in the NFL. And I think the hardest part about this is that the beginning of the schedule for them is maybe going to get pretty rough. So some key games for them: Week 2 versus the Giants, that's winnable. Week 10 versus Tampa Bay, they're going to both be coming off of a bye. So it'll really be a question of how much did they prepare for Tampa Bay? Are they going to get washed? Are they going to keep it close? Unfortunately, if Tampa Bay didn't have a bye at the same time they did, I think they have a chance to win this game. I really do. I think they could game plan well enough for them, but it's unfortunate because Tampa Bay is coming off a bye and they're the best team in football this year. So then, weeks 14 through 18, those are all NFC East opponents. That's going to be a very key slate of games for them, especially being at the end of the year. We're really going to have an idea of what kind of team Washington is to this point. And so that's really going to be key for them in terms of locking up the division. Unfortunately, my prediction is 5-12 for the Washington football team. My floor for them is 4 wins. I mean, I just want to list off some of the teams they have to play with this schedule. They have to play at Buffalo. They have to play Kansas City at home, at Green Bay on the road. They have to play Tampa Bay, with both of them coming off of a bye, so it kind of offsets the advantage they have in the bye category. They have to play Seattle against Russell Wilson, and then they have to do the rounds with the NFC East. So honestly, those 5 I listed before are basically not guaranteed losses, but they're pretty dang close. As I said before, with this young defense, they're going to get cooked by quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson. Those guys are going to eat this defense alive, unfortunately. So I really hate projecting them that low. But on the upside, I think their ceiling is 11 wins. There are some winnable games on the schedule. There are some games I think they're going to steal from under the rug of other teams. But it's just unfortunate, I think, how it played out for them, because I love this team. I love their layout, and I just want the best for Washington. I really have a lot of respect for Ron Rivera and what he's done there and what kind of human being he is. I think fighting through cancer and still being able to frickin' coach last year shows a lot about his character, shows a lot about his attitude as a person. And I think you can really tell with this team and how hard that defense already plays for him, what kind of respect he has in the locker room for this team. So I just wanted to preface this video at the end here and just say that this team has such a bright future, man. Their defense is amazing already, even though how young they are. They just added some great weapons in the receiving room. However, I think they just need a little bit more time to develop on that end of the ball. And they really got to deal with a hacksaw of a schedule at times. And I think that's going to be really rough for them. And it's really unfortunate. I don't want Washington fans to be mad at me for my record prediction, but unfortunately they just have a lot of tough games. And I think that's really going to bite them. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think I have Washington too high or too low? Let me know. Also, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel once again. Turn on those post notifications. I'm trying to make it a goal to reach 50 subscribers by the end of the year. And just a reminder, once again, every single day up until the NFL season, you're going to see a new video like this breaking down each and every NFL team. And if you've missed any in the past, make sure you go give those a watch as well. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.